Hi, welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. Back to Monday, no question period today. The House, of course, is in recess. There will be some committee meetings over the summer. Hopefully, they'll be talking about foreign influence and spies. But time is running out for Justin Trudeau. The clock is ticking on Justin Trudeau for a number of reasons. And we're going to be going to a
But we've
very
seen the
interesting
Liberal
clip
government
here
tap
in a while. But none other than that, shall we say, lecturing cabinet minister, deputy prime minister, and finance minister Chrystia Freeland has been getting some tough questions on how the Liberals use social media influencers at taxpayer expense to promote Liberal policies, to spew propaganda, essentially. That's what this is. This is not anything else than propaganda. And I wouldn't have a problem with the Liberal Party doing this. But when it's taxpayer money, you have to say something is askew. So we will be going to that shortly. But I wanted to show you some background about what is actually going on here. We've got a number of things I want to discuss today. And I will be right back with all of them.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need the resolve to resist.
Yes, please subscribe if you haven't. Resubscribe if you need to. Please support the station in whatever way you can. It's appreciated. We're growing. We're just about hit 26,000, and I'd like to see 50 by the end of the summer, but that's optimistic, I know. But whatever you guys can do, we appreciate it. This is a family, this station. It really is. And even though question period has been put on hold for a couple of 3 months, we will be doing live broadcasts increasingly. And I want to keep you up on the news. And what I'm talking about today, I think, is just evidentiary of how corrupt the Liberal government has become. And I really want to emphasize that this is just rank corruption in terms of it promoting itself at taxpayer expense. Now, there's a by-election in Toronto as well today. Toronto St. Paul's. This was Carolyn Bennett's old seat. She was health minister for years, and then she became mental health minister. Very, very cantankerous woman, but it was a safe Liberal seat. They used to win by 20 points. Right now, it's neck and neck, and the Conservatives could actually take this seat. This will be, of course, a good indication that there are no strings attached to Justin Trudeau in terms of winning elections, that he is not helping candidates win elections. So we'll see what happens there, and I'll take a look at some polling before we do that. And I also want to talk about what on earth was the Royal Canadian Navy doing in Cuba last week when the Defense Minister, Bill Blair, claimed that it was some kind of deterrence move against Russia? Turns out it wasn't, but we'll get into that. So I want to give you a little background first here on what is going on with social media influencers and where Justin Trudeau's head is at, because arguably, I'm no psychologist or psychiatrist, but I can recognize strains of schizophrenia when I see it. And it simply means trying to compartmentalize two opposing ideas at the same time and acting like there's nothing irrational about it. And that's exactly what Trudeau's done. Let's listen to this collection here.
Out there, a deliberate undermining of mainstream media. There are the conspiracy theorists, there are the social media drivers who are trying to do everything they can to keep people in their little filter bubbles, to prevent people from actually agreeing on a common set of facts, the way, the CBC and CTV, when they were our only sources of news, used to project.
Okay, so that's pretty odd for Justin Trudeau to be talking about the halcyon days in Canada of three news networks. He doesn't mention the fact there were probably 2 dailies in every major Canadian city. And of course, we had he would not probably look at the National Post as part of his equation. We had the Globe and Mail as sort of Canada's national newspaper, and that would be great with Trudeau. That's what he wants you to read. That's the media he wants you to view. He doesn't get into radio, but of course, it's a pre-internet age, isn't it? That he's talking about. You can't put the genie back in the bottle any more than we can put nuclear bomb back in the bottle and pretend that didn't happen. We are living in an internet age, and Trudeau is doing everything possible to stifle that information on the internet. And we know about his censorship bills, and we know the one that's just introduced in March, the Online Harms Act, which did not reach second reading, thank God, before the House recessed. But interesting, because March 2023, we learned that the Fed spent more than $600,000 hiring influencers, social media influencers in 2021. This was
the
largely,
Trudeau government turning to social.
And this was largely to counteract any qualms people had about getting the COVID-19 vaccine, because there was a lot of information on the internet saying that this vaccine might not be as safe and effective as the government was claiming it was. We now know it was neither of those two. It was not effective in stopping or preventing you from getting COVID. And there are reasons to doubt its safety. And we have to look into that too. But here's exactly what's been going on with the social media influencers.
Social media influencers to get the word out on some of their initiatives. Documents recently tabled in the House of Commons show Ottawa paid influencers more than $600,000 in taxpayers' money last year, and more than a dozen federal departments and agencies employed those influencers to try and help get the messages out, from everything to do with the COVID vaccine rollout to winterlude staycations. Let's go to Ottawa. CTV's Rachel Aiello is standing by. She's covering this story today. So, Rachel, some people are going to say smart move. Other people are going to say, wow, interesting use of taxpayers' money. Walk us through the story here.
Yeah, Todd. Well, it's really a new frontier, advertising through social media influencers. Obviously, government departments for a long time have been trying to reach Canadian audiences where they are, traditional TV watchers online themselves through their own accounts. But what we're seeing in increasing numbers, Todd, is the government using influencers to get their message out. So instead of seeing a post from the Government of Canada themselves, what you'll see is a post from probably someone you follow saying that they're partnering with the Government of Canada and they're bringing you this message. So I dug through these documents and took a look at the trends and what the government has been doing in the last year. And it was really interesting to see some of the strategies at play. Obviously, with the COVID vaccine rollout, they had an aim of targeting diverse groups of Canadians who might not necessarily be traditional media watchers, and also wanting to ensure uptake in the COVID vaccine is there in groups of people of color, for example, the LGBTQ community. And you saw that play out with who they appointed or hired or contracted for these influencer posts. So we saw a rather diverse group of folks be tasked with then taking to their social media accounts, many of them with large followings, some of them with very specific audiences, Todd. You know, they are a clear cache or a trusted community in sharing their rationale for why they got vaccinated. And these were all sponsored paid posts that the government backed in order to increase the take-up in the COVID-19 vaccine.
I just landed in Ottawa. Look who I ran into.
This is classic moment here. You might remember this. This was during the Canada Strong and Free conference in April, and this is a social media influencer, but not one the Liberals really would want to use. This is Cat Canada, because she goes by her moniker on X, and here she is sitting, obviously in the business class section with Chrystia Freeland, the Deputy Prime Minister. And Freeland actually invited her to be one of her social media influence, but she didn't have any idea that it might not be the most appropriate choice for her.
Can you wave to my followers on Twitter?
Sure. Hi.
Yes, so she got a bit of pushback on that. And by the way, we all know the COVID-19 vaccine was safe and effective, according to YouTube anyway. So we always have to add that disclaimer, don't we? So there she is, Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland sitting on the airplane with a small C conservative social media influencer, Cat Canada. And here's Chrystia Freeland looking extremely uncomfortable, trying to explain what the government's policy on social media influencers actually is.
But we've seen the Liberal government tapping influencers, and we're now seeing departments using marketing money to also tap influencers to deliver government messaging. I guess why pay influencers? Why do this?
I'm happy to offer a really general answer, which is...
Does she look happy to you? She looks extremely stressed, extremely uncomfortable, and unwilling to answer that question. And you'll find out as she attempts to answer the question, she doesn't.
It is really important for our government to be sure Canadians know what we are doing on their behalf. We work for you guys, and we work for all Canadians. And the money that the Government of Canada invests is the money of Canadians. And so we are all really, really focused on talking to Canadians, on being out in person and talking to as many people as we can in person. As you guys know, I used to be a journalist. I still read 2 newspapers every day in print and take pictures of the articles that I share with people. And I am a huge believer in the value of the work that all of you guys do, the work of professional salaried journalists. We also recognize that a lot of Canadians get their information from other sources, and it's our responsibility to be sure that we are meeting Canadians where they are. I don't know if anyone else wants.
And I guess I'll just add, I have 4 kids. All of us up here have kids, and we see that our newspapers on our kitchen counters are not getting read by our children. At least I do. And I'll just say that this is a time where the way in which media is consumed is evolving, and we need to evolve with the times.
Okay, so evolve with the times on your own dime. Don't expect taxpayers to pay for your propaganda. And this, of course, is immediately where she goes to suggest that anything that is opposing Liberal policy is misinformation, disinformation, and she's just about to get there.
And certainly, when I was Minister of National Defense, we saw in numerous instances that misinformation and disinformation were creeping into our media, our systems across the country, and in the private and public sector were being hacked by cyber criminals. And so essentially, I don't think we should look at the use of influencers in a silo. We should actually think about how, as a government, we are responding to the use of misinformation and disinformation to change the way in which people think. And in yesteryear, what was understood to be the truth?
You see how pained they are to try to rationalize and justify their misuse of taxpayer money to pay for Liberal propaganda, because it's all of everybody else's fault. There's this massive conspiracy out there on social media to discredit the wonderful policies promulgated by the Liberal government, and it's their job to spend your money to ensure you don't believe any of it.
Was more objective. We are now in an era where people debate what is true. And in order to be in the realm of discussing...
I thought we always debated what is true. Is that not something we should be doing? Is it only true if the Liberal government says it is?
We need to ensure that the work that we are doing in whatever portfolio is actually disseminated in an honest and clear way so that Canadians can understand what their taxpayer dollars are paying for.
Thank you for all those answers. My follow-up is, if TikTok is potentially a national security risk, then why are you leaning on its influencers to deliver government messaging?
And get a load of this answer. Non-answer. Yeah, Christy, come to my
Sure.
rescue.
I mean, as you know, we do take the potential threat posed by TikTok very seriously, and our government has taken real, meaningful action there. That is the right thing to do, and that is certainly an issue which we are discussing with our allies. The broader question of foreign interference and how, as countries, we can protect our own democracy and the democracy of our partners.
And I'll just say that influencers, being influencers, are heard on other media platforms other than TikTok.
Well, how nice! But if TikTok is not kosher for the federal government to use, why is it okay for the Liberal Party to use it? I mean, where's the disconnect end here? It is incredible hypocrisy, but that's what we've come to expect from this government. So this is a very serious issue because, of course, we've got Trudeau spending your dollars, your tax dollars, on government propaganda. At the same time, he wants to eliminate stations like this. He wants to eliminate new media and independent media from the internet because they all are guilty misinformation, disinformation, which are terms he doesn't use as readily as Anita Anand did in that interview. He likes to talk about harm now, that if you're spinning any kind of story that is not written by the Liberal Party, that you are producing harm on Canadians and you must be silenced. And the Online Harms Act will do that by putting you in prison for life, locking you up at home with a bracelet if you're considered to be potentially guilty of a thought crime. And of course, subjecting you to human rights tribunals, which can fine the life out of you and keep you poor for the rest of your existence. And that's what Trudeau's plan is. So it's twofold. Force taxpayers to pay for his propaganda, stop any media outlets that disagree with him. That's where Trudeau is coming. So how is this affecting things right now? Now, as I said, there's a by-election coming up in Toronto, St. Paul. Now, and this is the average here. Like the Conservatives are about 20 points ahead in this poll. They've maintained a 20-point spread now for about 4 months. So this is a huge. I'd love to see the bloc disappear entirely here, but it would. This is indicative of how the Liberal support has cratered, and it continues to crater. And yeah, and that's the by-election. We'll have the results on tonight. It is too close to call, but it's a good possibility that the Conservatives could take it. And that, of course, would be another reason for Justin Trudeau to consider his future as the leader of the Liberal Party and Prime Minister of Canada. Do I think that's going to take him down? No, I don't. I don't think that's going to be enough impetus for him to truly assess his future and say it's time to go. I think he'll continue as long as it's feasible, as long as he can fend off attacks from the caucus and the cabinet and the party bosses. He'll do that. But interestingly enough, there's the Liberal hope throughout the ages has always been get rid of the unpopular leader who's past his shelf life and put in a new leader, and you will have a rebirth of the party, and Canadians will just naturally support it. And it, of course, hasn't always happened, has it? Paul Martin did not catch on with Canadians, even though he took over the job from Jean Chrétien. And it's John Turner did not catch on with Canadians when he took on the job after Pierre Trudeau. So it's interesting. If you look at this, even if they put Freeland, who I guess is supposedly the front runner, there's 20 points behind. It's not going to work. And Dominic LeBlanc minus 13. Now I can't imagine Champagne, that one of the most annoying and grating cabinet ministers, even thinking he could possibly be a leader of the Liberal Party. But he's at minus 11. So, and Mark Carney, well, there's a minus 4% there. But there's really nobody who is the savior of the Liberal Party anymore. It's not going to happen. The Liberal Party is not going to recover from Justin Trudeau. So that's one reason I don't think he will be leaving anytime soon, because he believes he's the best leader of the Liberal Party, and he will fight to keep that position. I want to move to a story here before I forget. This was interesting because this question came up in the last week of question period. I think about a week ago now. And it was the conservative defense critic, James Bazan, who was actually an old friend. And he asked the defense minister, Bill Blair, what was the Canadian Navy, Royal Canadian Navy, doing down in Havana? And Bill Blair gave a horribly mangled response. It was barely coherent. And a lot of people commented, like, is there something wrong with Bill here? Because he really didn't seem to have a grasp of the answer. But the gist of his response was that the Navy was in Havana as part of some deterrence show against Russia because Russian ships had been there. Now, whether or not Bill Blair actually believed this or not, I doubt it very much. But how much does he not know about his own department if he didn't know what the Canadian Navy was actually doing? They were there to put on a conga show, entertainment for Havana. It had nothing to do with deterrence, and Blair was obviously aware of that. But he came up with this cover story, and I mean, get a load of this guy here. I mean, I don't know who this is, but I would suggest that perhaps the physical fitness requirements in the Canadian Armed Forces have been gradually reduced over the years, because I don't recall regular force people looking like this when I was in uniform. But I'm not making fun of the man's weight. Yeah, but the Canadian Armed Forces and the Canadian Navy used to have stringent regulations in terms of being physically fit. I know they got rid of the body mass index years ago, but I still thought you had to pass fitness tests twice a year. I did when I was in uniform, and I could still pass them today. But anyway, a little surprised to see this picture of this individual, and like I said, I don't know who it is, but he was. This photo was tweeted by the Canadian Embassy in Cuba. They're quite proud of this guy on the trumpet performing for the Cubans. Interesting, to say the least. But that is, we don't know.
I thought I was going to make it through this, but I'm not.
No, he's not. Ultimately, time is ticking away for Justin Trudeau. And I think he will continue to try to hold on, but he can't ignore the facts forever. So even though he thinks he's ready to fight another election, he believes he can win another election. I don't believe that illusion, that delusion, is shared by the rank and file Liberal Party membership, most of the cabinet, or most of the caucus, which definitely sees Trudeau as a liability at this point. So he might want to hang on to that next election, but I doubt the Liberal Party will let him stay because time is ticking for Justin Trudeau. And that's where we are with this story. So what do we need to do this summer? We have to stay vigilant about a number of things. And one is to never forget that the Trudeau government is trying to pass the most authoritarian anti-free speech law, for lack of better. I'm not going to call it a hate speech law because it isn't. It is a law that wants to undermine and destroy free speech in Canada, the Online Harms Act. And as long as it's the most authoritarian legislation like it in the world, for a democratic country, a supposedly democratic country, we must continue to fight that. We must continue to ask for names of these spies in the House of Commons and not let this story die throughout the summer. I think that's extremely important. We have to keep fighting for truth, and we have to keep fighting for accuracy. And that's something we never get from Justin Trudeau. So I thank you for watching today. And we are going to be on again tomorrow. And like I say, we will continue this live relationship throughout the summer, question period or no question period. And I think it's important to stay informed and to stay on top of the news. Thanks for watching, everybody.